So let's start off with the protect function. What is it? So how do we understand the protect function? This is the core of cybersecurity. This is actually applying the security features on your operating systems, on your applications, in your whole environment. This is how we safeguard services. This is how we manage the risk. And the key areas of protect are identifying and accessing and access management, of course, super important to identify and like we said before, you have to be able to identify what's in your organization. Otherwise, how can you know what to protect if you don't identify it? Data security, safeguarding the actual data at rest, in transit, and while it's being processed. User training, huge, something that's overlooked and something that is extremely important in your environment. But that's part of the protect function. Network protection, making sure that your network is set up properly, things like that. So on a high level, we're not going to go super in depth in the IP protocols or any of that. We're talking about the NIST CSF. So we're going to keep it there, but we're going to address all the things that you should have in your protect function if you're using the NIST CSF 2.0. And so here are the categories of protect. You've got PRAA, which is identity management, authentication, access controls, things like that. Actual awareness training, data security protection, platform security, and finally, technology infrastructure resilience. We might not touch all of those, or maybe what we'll do is just hit everyone quickly to give you an idea, bird's eye view of what's going on. So one of the main things that we do in the identify function is what's called identity and access management. So here's what you're looking at here is a real policy from Boston University, where normally what you'll do in every organization is you'll have a policy that addresses how you're going to do identity and access management, and then a procedure that breaks it down even further. So that's what you're looking at here. This is a normal thing that you'll have in the NIST CSF. And so when you're documenting that, you would actually go into the processes that'll break it down even further, like exactly how you're going to do identity and access management. So that is PRAA. You're going to have a policy. You're going to have a procedure to break all of this stuff down. Now, in my course, we're going to actually go through this and actually write these things from scratch. But from a bird's eye view, what is it? Identification is your username, what unique name that you have on a system. So it can be, if you think about Gmail, most of us have some kind of Gmail or Hotmail or Yahoo or some kind of account, right? Every single account has to be unique. Every single email has to be unique. And that's what identification is, a unique identifier. If you're on a network with your organization, whatever organization you work for, you have a unique username. So that's identification. When you log in, you have to have, and this is obvious to cybersecurity or IT professionals, been doing this for a long time, but for the sake of going through and being thorough, authentication is necessary for your username. You have a username or you have a unique email or whatever, and that's combined with your authentication. Now, authentication can be a password, it can be a PIN number, it can be a token, it can be biometrics, it can be, you have multi-factor authentication, but all of these things will be done in the PRAA, identity and access management function. So AA1 is addressing managing the actual identities and credentials. So this is your username. It could be an email. It could be, there's all kinds of ways you can have unique identifiers. But PRAA1, it addresses an organization should have some method of having unique identifiers and managing those identities and credentials. And then 2 gets into proofing and credentials and binding the proof of who you are with the credentials itself. So this is something that's kind of done in the back end. Whenever you go to a new job, they'll when they're going through like making sure you are who you say you are, they're asking for your birth certificate, or they're asking for your national ID card or your passport or whatever. They're trying to prove who you are, and then once they have the evidence of who you are, they're going to map that to the credentials they're going to give you. So that's all that's all about, is identity proofing and credential binding. Authentication methods. We kind of already glanced on this, but this is strong passwords, multi-factor authentication, biometrics, you name it. It could be a fob that has I remember one place I worked at, we had an RSA key, like a little fob, and it automatically would change the code. You'd have to use that to sign into your VPN, into your system. AA4 is protecting the identity assertions. Encryption, that's using encryption, digital signatures, secure protocols, all the methods that you'll use to secure the identities. And then getting into access control. So access controls is huge. And the way that you're going to do access controls is the principle of least privilege. That means what you're going to do with least privilege is you're only giving people what they need to do their job. You're not giving them any more or any less. Whatever they need to do their job, that's the level of privilege that you're going to give them. And that's done through role-based access, meaning if your role is a system admin on Linux systems, you'll have a role specific to that, and you'll have the privileges that you need to do that particular thing. And if you got assigned to do Microsoft systems, maybe you don't have access to those because your role is a Linux admin, so you only would have access to those things. Maybe you're just a normal user and you only needs right to your local laptop. So in that case, your role would be attached to that particular role. So these access roles and privileges are supposed to be reviewed on a regular basis, and that's going to be a part of PRAA5 access control. You'll see the same thing in the NIST 800. You'll see the same thing in PCI DSS. You'll see the same thing. Access control is super important to cybersecurity, to the protect function for the NIST cybersecurity framework. And this all maps together. You're like, this stuff will be, it's like after a while, it's like a broken record, because you're hearing the same concepts with different names. PRAA6, physical access control, super important. If you can physically touch any system, you can control it, or you can manipulate it, or you can disrupt it. Even if you have if you find somebody's iPhone and you can physically have it in your hands, and they dropped it on the ground at the skating rink or whatever, you pick it up and you might think, well, it's encrypted. How are they going to get in? Well, they could break it. I mean, they could just destroy it, and then they could destroy it. I mean, there's other ways. There's other things they can do to the phone to where you don't have access to whatever data was on there. So if they have access to a server where you can take it apart and then take out the RAM and take out the hard drive and stuff like that, maybe the hard drive's encrypted, but you can still just destroy it, And God forbid you didn't encrypt it, because then they have access to all the data on there, because there's forensics tools you can use to extract all the data. So physical access is super important, controlling the physical access, and that's PRAA6, physical access control. Secure entry positions, visitor logs, biometrics when people come into the facility, having restricted areas, having areas that have access controls on them, physical access controls. That's what we're talking about. So that is also a part of the protect function. And you'll see this in NIST 800. It's called PE controls. PCI DSS has a variant of that. So all robust security frameworks and regulations all will mention physical security, because if you have physical access to a system, you can do whatever. You can disrupt it at the very least. All right. AT controls. This one slept on quite a bit especially at some medium-sized organizations. They just won't do this one thoroughly. And it's really important to have awareness training. And where we're talking about awareness training, we're talking about security awareness training, making sure that people know about phishing attacks and how to deal with them, how to identify them, how to deal with them, what to do, making sure they know things like, I don't know, social engineering. If they happen to be in working in the front office or taking calls or something, knowing what patterns to look for if somebody is trying to get more information off of you, to get access to a computer or get access to the building or something like that. Awareness training makes them aware of what's going on as far as the threats, the weaknesses of your organization, and how to avoid those. This is the main way that systems are getting hacked these days, is because of lack of awareness training. And you'll find a lot of this happening at medium-sized and small organizations where people are not given good enough awareness training. And then it goes further into awareness training. I won't go into this. You could see that it really expands in awareness training. But let's get into PRDS, or data security overview.